Welcome to Marketing MASH, brought to you by themarketingscope.com.
Welcome to the Marketing MASH. I'm Eric Vidal, the editor and chief content officer. Today, we're going to talk SEO and SEM, probably more so on the SEM side. We have Mark Smith, co-founder of the agency Keyword First out of the Chicago area. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to see you. It's been quite some time, right? Probably a year since last time I saw you.
Yeah, it's probably just about a year.
So I know that Keyword First is a digital agency and you do a lot of different things, but some of the things that you guys do very well over there is SEO and SEM for your clients. And over the last few months or so, there's been a lot of changes, or there's been some changes that have gone on at Google and, the acronym SERP. And so just give us a quick definition of, or explanation of, those changes. And then let's talk about what it means to, us marketers. I mean, there's pros and cons on both sides, but can you just quickly define what SERP means?
Yeah, the search engine results page is the acronym SERP. And it's been changing a lot over the last year. And actually, since the big change that came out in February occurred, there have been more changes. So it's really an area that changes very frequently, and I think that advertisers have to pay attention to what's going on because they need to adjust to these changes in such a way that's going to benefit their programs the most. So it's
and from my perspective, because I'm not, I'm a jack of all trades from some of the, when it comes to some of these topics. So from my perspective, it just means less advertising opportunity, right? That's kind of the short answer.
Yeah.
And to me, and straighten me out here, but to me, that's a good thing for maybe a bigger company that spends a lot of money. And maybe it's a challenge for a smaller company.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think when you say less advertising space, I think the nature of the search engine results page, the SERP, is changed so that you're seeing less organic listings or opportunities for organic listings and more paid listings, or at least different formats.
Yeah.
So you're right. This change that occurred back on February 19th was probably most damaging to the smaller advertiser. So whereas we had about 8 to 11 spots on the page, and they started from the top of the middle and went down 1 through 3, and then on the right hand rail was where you had the 4 through 11. Well, basically what they did is they eliminated 8 through 11. And, as you might guess, the smaller advertisers with the smaller budgets who couldn't afford the higher cost per clicks were basically taken out of the auction. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. The bigger advertisers, it had much less of an impact than the smaller advertisers. That's one of the big changes that happened.
And that was kind of a staple, right? That right-hand side all the way down. That was, what was it, late 2001?
It's been a long time. A lot of people have been used to that layout. And so I think that's one of the reasons why it sent such a shockwave through the industry is, hey, you can't take away that right-hand rail. Everyone was used to it. So I think a lot of people panicked about what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you think from a revenue standpoint, obviously Google knows what they're doing. They're going to be asking for more money for those spots all become more valuable, right?
Yep, they sure do. And so I think one of the things that the first reaction from most advertisers was, that those top 3 spots, or it really became 4. Those top 4 spots are going to go at a premium, and my CPCs are going to go through the roof. That was what everyone first thought. But realistically, what has happened since, we've had a couple months now, the dust has settled a little bit, although I still think that, there's going to be more to come on this. But essentially, we haven't seen a lot in terms of CPCs really going through the roof, and they've been relatively stable. So I think that's one of the surprising things is that they've maintained some stability. And that probably has to do with the fact that, as you alluded to, this didn't really have that much of an impact to the larger advertisers. So it wasn't like the smaller guy got in there and said, well, I need to go fight for position 2 or 3 and really increase the competitiveness. That didn't really happen. So I think everyone has been sort of in a wait and see approach And so there hasn't been a lot of volatility in those top spots.
So does that mean more opportunity for an agency like you, that you're going to have more people coming to you and saying, hey, how do we adjust to this? And can we have you kind of guide us through this for the next 3 months or long term?
Yeah, I think what it does is that it's made advertisers, they need to be a little bit smarter with their approach. And there are so many new tactics and strategies that you could use that you really have to be working with someone who knows what they're doing, and whether that's an agency or somebody that is an internal resource that just knows how to manage a campaign.
So what are some things that some of these smaller companies who might have been quickly or immediately affected by this change, what are some of the changes that they're making to adjust to this?
Well, I think a couple things. So as we mentioned, that those positions 8 through 11 are gone. So there really weren't a lot of impressions and clicks in those spots anyways. So that's one thing. But if you talk about positions 5 through 7, let's say, those positions that have been moved down to the bottom of the page, I think that what we need to do, or what a company might need to do, is really refine their approach so that if they do want to go up into a higher position and be above the fold, they really need to pick their battles, choose their battle, I guess, in the sense that maybe you really need to take a look at ad scheduling or day parting and really focus on those times that might be most beneficial for selling your product or service. You really have to look at targeting. There might be some great opportunities in maybe using some remarketing lists or demographics or geographical information that you can really fine tune your targeting so that if you are working on a smaller budget, that you really maximize that budget and spend it wisely. Whereas maybe in the past it's, hey, let's just launch this AdWords campaign and see what we get.
Yeah.
Well, the game has changed and you need to be smarter about it. So I think targeting and I think messaging, really making sure that your text ads reflect the best possible message to get people into the top of the funnel.
Hey, for some of those who maybe don't really use remarketing lists or maybe aren't even familiar with what that tactic is, can you quickly just give a description of that for our audience, for the folks that might not know what that means?
Sure. So most people might know what remarketing is, and that, when somebody comes to your website, you place a cookie on their computer, and then you're able to market to them, typically through a text ad or a banner ad after they leave your website to get them back in and keep your brand top of mind. But the remarketing list can be used for other things as well. For example, what you can do is take that list and layer it into your search campaigns so that you can have a different bid strategy for people who are in that list. I'll give you an example. So if you're selling a widget and somebody is on your remarketing list, and then they go to Google and they perform a search for, they're trying to find a widget, that person will be on your remarketing list. You can bid differently than someone who is just searching for a widget for the first time. And when I say bid differently, you can bid more aggressively. So if you know that they've been to your site and that they're performing another search for that same product, maybe your initial bid was $2 and you're in position 7. Well, because they might be more likely to buy now. They're coming around the second time. Maybe you can up your bid. Maybe you can double your bid and get into position 2. Get that more qualified customer. Get the click. Get them back to your site and convert. So it's that remarketing list for search. They're called RLSAs. Can be used for that type of situation, and they're pretty effective.
Well, let's talk about some applications or how you might be able to apply that. I'll give you a couple examples of how we've used it. Is from the B2B side, if you have account-based marketing and there's 300 or a list of 500, 300, whatever that number is, companies that is your ideal target audience, then you may use that list, or you may use a list of people, like you said, have visited your site and maybe not converted. The other one would be the ideal target audience just based not maybe on company, but based on demographic or psychographic or what have you. So, but I'm sure that there's others, especially on the B2C side.
Yeah, I'll give you another one that some people don't typically think of is we have a client that uses that list to exclude people from seeing an ad. So the purpose there is we have a client that you so that when people search for their branded terms, that they don't see their branded.
Yeah, good point.
So,
good point. Hey,
these are
repeat that last part. We got cut off. The video stammered for a second.
Oh, sorry. Yes. So the example here would be when people are already customers of a business and they're coming back and they're searching for a brand. A lot of them are clicking on the paid ads, and some companies don't want that because maybe they're coming back just to check on an order or do something that's not going to lead to any more business. So they search or click on the organic listing. So that's a really nice technique that maybe people don't typically think of when they're using a list.
Yeah. So, Mark, what about these SERP changes that were made? Does that affect video one way or the other, positive or negatively?
Sorry, you broke up on me. Can you repeat your question, Eric?
Yeah. So, with some of the changes that have gone on that Google made with their SERP, does this affect video and positively or negatively? How does that affect video?
No, that's a good question. And so what I think is happening, or one thing that I would recommend is if you're one of those advertisers who you feel might be squeezed out of the search game, try some other tactics because they might be effective. And I think this is going to force people to try these tactics that maybe they haven't before, and they may find them to be very effective. So maybe, video is a great example. Doing social media campaigns or remarketing campaigns within Facebook or something along those lines, or some LinkedIn or Twitter advertising. I think what's happened is people have said, gosh, I'm getting squeezed out. I need to continue to promote my brand to tell people about what we do, to get them to our website or to call us or whatever the action might be. So absolutely. So video is a great one. I think there's still a lot of opportunity out there in that particular space. So definitely a lot of other tactics are being used because of the change in the landscape within the SERP page.
Speaking of tactics, Katie asked a question. And so for the people who can't hire an agency, or maybe they don't have somebody in-house that is knowledgeable or an expert or semi-expert when it comes to SEM, what are a couple of tips that you can give those folks to improve what they're doing or even start a successful SEM campaign, right? Within
their paid search campaign specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of different tactics, and it is, I feel their pain. If somebody doesn't have a lot of experience or can work with someone who has a lot of experience, there are so many different features and tactics that someone might use to fine tune a campaign. But, from the basics, I would say that definitely look at your, it all starts at the keyword level. Some people build their keyword lists out and they're all over the board, but you really need to fine tune your keyword list and be very selective on what kind of keywords you're targeting. And it sounds very basic, but the rules have changed even around how Google's algorithm works with keywords, and it really favors the high volume terms. Unfortunately, that the years of the long tail keywords generating some traffic, that's kind of going to the wayside with features like changes like close variants and things like that. So really be focused on your keywords and really do a good job of really scouring your search term reports on a weekly basis to weed out inefficiencies. When people launch broad match keywords, they're still getting burned a lot on terms that are not related to their business, and so you really need to focus on your search terms to look for negative keyword opportunities, and that's one really easy way that you can cut out some cost.
Yeah. Yeah. So how can companies track and analyze success on other channels? I mean, can they still use Google Analytics? Does this affect it? Does it change it? Or is everything still?
You know what? This particular change, I think, has made measuring what happens on other channels much more important. So you think about the concept of attribution, and whether you're using a tool like Google Analytics, or whether you're using Visual IQ or some of these other platforms, I think you really have to know how those tactics that you're employing, like a video or social media, how they're impacting your paid search campaign. So I think this has forced people, again, to be smarter about their overall marketing, and specifically attribution and analytics. I guess you can tie those in together. You really have to know what's going on and how one thing impacts another, one tactic impacts another. So it's definitely pushed people more to the analytics part of marketing.
So these changes made, and you implied earlier that there's going to be more. Where do you think this is going?
Yeah. So
any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Google has continued to make changes even within the ad format. So just within the last couple of weeks, they have rolled out what they called expanded text ads, and what they're doing is, now that think about the desktop SERP where you have more space. What they've done is they have allowed advertisers to two headlines. They're really stretching out the length of a headline. They're combining two. They're allowing advertisers to have more character space within a text ad. So that's really changing. So that's on a desktop. But you said, where is this going? Well, it really kind of all leads back to mobile, because mobile continues to take up more and more query share, if you want to use that term. So these ad formats and some of these changes that they've made are geared towards the user on a smartphone.
Wow. Yeah. Well, listen, Mark, we appreciate all your insight. If our audience wants to get in touch with you for more information, obviously on Twitter, they can follow you and your company at Keyword First.
Yep.
And what's your URL?
www.keywordfirst.com, spelled as a word.
Keyword First. That's great. Mark Smith with Keyword First. Thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Eric. I appreciate it.
That's it for this episode of Marketing Mash. You can share your thoughts by following us on Twitter and Facebook. Subscribe to our podcast to keep up with the show. And of course, you can always find us by visiting themarketingscope.com.